Well, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome participants to the joint hybrid planning board meeting of October 10th. Call to order, Ms. Creighton.
Here.
Ms. Delicio.
Here.
Foley.
Here.
Mr. Only.
Here.
Ms. Philbrick won't be joining us, and Ms. Cheney.
Here.
Thank you. If we have a quorum, I'd like to remind all board members, guests asked to be recognized by the chair if you wish to speak. And this meeting is being recorded. First item on the agenda is acknowledgement of receipt of correspondence. Planning board received a email from Liz Colbert on 10/2, to Lorraine Iovine on 9/30, and they added a public hearing notice for Gloucester. At this time, I'd like any public comments, any comments the public wishes to make for items not on the agenda with a limited amount of time. Anyone from the public wish to speak to the board? Okay, pretty short agenda tonight. First item I put on was the special town meeting on November 13th. We are moving forward with a public hearing next meeting on the amendment to the table of uses 4.2, note 13. Minor amendments are being proposed to allow family members to be allowed to live in living quarters that are part of an existing garage, stable, or other structures. We had proposed language from Laura Tenney. Betsy asked John Murray, KP Law, to comment on the revision language on that. And as of Friday, her last day, she has not received any comments back. Greg, do you know if anything came back from KP Law on that, on our proposed language?
So we commented earlier, but I don't.
You commented on the specific family. We struck family. We just said we struck employee. So we're making it broader, not less
But
restrictive.
he had some concern about
Yeah, so we need clarification.
family members because of
Right,
fair housing laws.
right. So we, if I may.
Yes, Sarah?
So I think, and to everybody, I put the draft that Laura had provided, in tonight's packet. I just did it, so, you're looking for it. We struck family living quarters for an employee of owner occupant. So just family living quarters. And then note 13 would be as part of an existing garage, stable, or other existing structure approved by special permit of the ZBA, family living quarters, all such garage, stable, or other existing structure approved by the zoning board of appeal as accessory use. Short-term rentals are prohibited within this accessory use. So that should be the draft that is.
Sorry, I'll have to follow up. I don't
Okay.
know the word.
Do you want us to send, would it be helpful if we send you this copy again? Okay, no problem.
So the thought was to get public input at our next meeting and then make a decision on what we hear, on any changes, or if we want to move forward. I think that was what the board decided.
Yeah, another
Sarah?
question for Greg. Are we planning on having a town meeting? Are you still planning on that?
Still planning on it. It's not 100% definite, but I would,
Oh. Okay,
if I were betting again, I would say yes.
okay. Not just for this.
Matches. So the select board will be talking about it on Monday, a week from yesterday.
Okay.
So,
Any other comments? I'd move on.
I have a question about town council. So, I mean, we didn't really vote on this again, so do we have any idea what we spent from town council? Do we need to add this to a budget? Do we have a budget? Do we just kind of open up the floodgates and send what we need?
This request was through Betsy, through the town, not through, I think Betsy did this on her own. The request to.
So we monitor the expenditures. We have a line out for legal counsel for all general town purposes. So that's where that things. That's how that's being.
Do we have a budget though?
I'm sorry?
Do we have a budget?
Yes.
Are we over it?
No,
So what is our budget? It's not in the like annual budget that we voted on per se, right?
that's what I'm talking about. We have $110,000.
Okay, but it doesn't say like planning board. I was just curious, like how much, like you think the
We don't have
planning
a
board,
specific planning board budget, no.
Okay, this is not on the agenda.
Comes under the general legal
I was
expenses.
curious how it made its way to town council.
Investments. Any other special town meeting additions? Late to move forward on anything, but.
Can I ask a question about there was a public hearing notice in the packet, so that's been revised?
Has that been,
Revised? Is that different language? That's different language than what Sarah just read.
I think the notice was for the meeting, doesn't need to have the full language.
and I think
So
it's
that's not my
available
question.
at,
No, my question was, so the language has changed since what was posted in the packet, is that correct?
did you add,
No, I believe what's posted in the packet is the public notice, which indicates that we're holding a public meeting for the purposes of 4.2. Note 13, and then the language is the language of the proposal that Laura gave us, the language of the zoning amendment.
So when I printed the notice, I got 2 pages. So I got the public hearing notice and I got the language. And so my question is, has the language now changed from what
I don't know what,
is in the public hearing notice? You read something different than what's in our packet, so I don't know where that's coming from.
coming from what we were asked to look at public notice.
So at the bottom of this, it says revision proposed by Laura Tenning. So it doesn't say anything about short-term rentals.
Yeah, it does. I'm looking at the notice, it says it's exactly the same as what I read. Short-term rentals are prohibited with this accessory use. End of this note 13. It's the public notice and bylaw change in our packet.
So it's the same. All right, it looks like it's crossed out. All right.
It's using track changes, which was the request.
Laura?
I was just gonna say, I just retyped it myself from what Betsy had written, and then I track changes where I struck things out so that people could see the difference. So tracking changes, that's all.
Okay, so is it, all right, it's not track change from our current bylaw, it's track change from a different,
No.
No, it's track change from our
Track
current
changes
bylaw.
from the current.
okay. All right, thank you. No.
So it's in there twice. It's in the packet, meeting packet twice. I didn't see it appended to the public notice.
Okay, moving on to cell signaling technologies. I expect the permit coming up either next, he said October. I don't know when that might be filed, but we are expecting it this month. My thought was to talk, talk a little bit about consultants we may want to hire to review certain parts of the permit. I think technically you need to have 3 estimates for the work. At least that's what Betsy has told us in our packet. The proposed consultants, my initial feeling and Betsy's initial feeling was stormwater and traffic. Think Betsy has reached out to Bill Jones of Linden Engineering and Hugh Graham Engineering in Ipswich, and Beals and Thomas to review the Shingle Hill project for stormwater. For traffic, I think she reached out to Beals and Thomas, MDM Transportation Engineers, and she has not identified a 3rd consultant.
I believe that we don't have to have 3 for engineers. Is that correct? Right.
I'm sorry,
We don't need to have 3 if we have for engineers.
correct. Engineering firms are exempt from the procurement laws.
Okay. Do you have any, sorry. Laura had a question, sorry.
Laura?
There was a reference in some of the background material to a wildlife biologist review, and we did discuss having a wildlife biologist on the team with CST sometime ago. Could that possibly be a peer review consultant?
No, her comment on that was, Fields and Thomas and Linden Engineering both have expertise to complete that review.
We would
That's
need to
a,
scope that.
Wildlife management plan.
We would need to be explicit about having it be part of the scope.
Yes, do we want to be explicit about, do we feel that something that we want to do as a board? Have that kind of expertise, Sarah?
Well, the one thing that Cell Signaling came last meeting, Laura, you weren't here, and they've added a wildlife person to their team. So probably anybody on our side would be reviewing their submission or
Right.
right, yeah,
That's what I was thinking.
yeah. Does that change the engineering exemption then if you're adding the scope?
I think that was part of the firm, the engineering firm that had that,
Then you'd be fine,
so you'd be fine. If you did that as an individual standalone,
right, it'd be probably.
probably would need to get the quotes.
And can I ask Greg, do you have any specific experience with any of those? I know Bill Jones did the high school and the memorial school for the planning board. And I would say from the client side, he was very, very thorough, but pragmatic. That would be my experience. I was on the client side, on the applicant side.
Beals and Thomas has been doing a lot of 40B work.
Mhm.
Very satisfied with their work. So. The traffic engineers have also been working with a few firms. On 40B as well.
Beals and Thomas can do traffic and stormwater.
I'm sorry,
It sounds like Beals and Thomas can do traffic and stormwater,
That's correct,
according to Betsy's list.
right?
Is that an advantage to have one firm that does both
there's some,
economies?
tends to be efficient that way, but yeah.
Laura?
Sorry, I keep putting my hand up and then down. I just was trying not to interrupt Greg, but
That's
there are other engineering firms that do
Yes.
both.
Yes.
VHB niche, not wildlife biology, but those two disciplines. The econ probably. In case we,
So it's
not,
He can't.
not you.
You
Yeah,
couldn't
and there are a
weigh
number of
a
firms that do
comments
that.
on it.
Ron,
There was also talk, Christina?
Yeah, so I don't really remember it, but I guess apparently I was concerned about geothermal.
So it's just
So what, who can work on that? Because that is in the water district, right? And there is concerns of the geothermal heating the water and then introducing like higher bacteria. I mean, I did read about it before, but
So just to this, sorry for interrupting, but CST has hired Haley and Aldridge, national known firm, to complete a study on the effects of geothermal on the well. And this is from Bluffsky, thought that might be sufficient, but I'll take suggestions from the board on that.
I think the point of ours is to look at theirs, right? So we need someone on the other side. So I mean, it would be nice to say who they're using. So then we can find someone to at least review it, just like we said, the wildlife. Unless we have an expert on our own board.
No.
And I guess my other point with the 40B was, I would like to see another firm, not the same firm that did the 40B, just to get a different opinion, not the same take. I mean, it is across the street. So I'd be curious to see what someone else came up with.
I also, my personal opinion was that I'm not sure who did the traffic engineering for the 40B.
Vanessa,
Who did,
was it VHB?
VHB, I don't remember.
I don't remember who it was, but they came into traffic council on like December 28th or something, and there was some flaws, some obvious. To
It was
a layperson,
COVID, so yeah.
to layperson on traffic engineering, it seemed like they missed a few things. But we do have the traffic report from MIPA. So MIPA has already weighed in on traffic. In terms of the impacts at the 128 intersection. So I think the traffic is the more the local, any mitigations along. I would think would be any mitigations. Local to the site, I guess, and outside of the 128 School Street intersection, so that's already been reviewed by MIPA. Like if there were gonna be so many new cars at Crosby's, or I don't know what, so. But we can,
Check if Fields and Thomas did the 40B, I don't know.
I guess we should still talk about the finance. I mean, we've talked about, this is the biggest project that will hit Manchester. And I'm not really sure. I mean, Sarah Melish says that they're comfortable as the finance committee, but I feel like they have the same expertise as we have with geothermal and wildlife. I feel like that we should be relying on an outside source. I don't know who that is or what it looks like, but for us to rely on another internal board, it's the same as us just saying that we're wildlife. So I do think we need some kind of a financial report that looks at schools, fire. I don't know who's doing that, and I'm not sure that the FinCom has that.
FinCom, we would delegate the FinCom analysis to them.
Back to us.
Well, they should report to us.
So I'm the one that's been pushing the financial analysis, and I would agree. The scope of it, I think probably extends past what FinCom does. I mean, it's one thing for them to review something that the applicant puts together. I think we need our own financial analysis done for impacts and the pros of it as well. I think that's a very important piece, just for the scales with, impact to town services, police and fire, infrastructure, whatever it may be. So I think, and through our new performance bylaw and other bylaws, I think we've stressed that we need that financial analysis piece, and it's important.
And I also think it should include any grant application monies deducted out of our budget and what the tax revenue is, so we can actually balance the benefit.
The comments from the board on going beyond FinCom's purview.
It seems to me that we would ask the FinCom to conduct that analysis, and if they believe they need a consultant, certainly could take your input. We can hire the consultant through our mechanism of CST reimbursing the town for that expense, or however that works. But seems to me we could ask the FinCom what they think. I mean, it seems to me it's there, and then they should absolutely write or give us a report for their financial impact for their consultants, but
I just don't think it's their purview. It's our job. We're the studies of the town, so
We're doing the special permit.
how isn't the financial impact of the town, the finance committee's
I mean,
responsibility?
they project what expenses are gonna be, but not this, a project per se. I mean, this is MGL. I mean, we can ask for their opinion on the outside consultant if they agree with it, but I mean, I do think that we should rely on an outside consultant. I mean, that's why this outside consultant part of the law is there. I mean, just as I said, we're not wildlife experts, they're not financial experts. I mean, we haven't had anything like this for them to model anything. It's not like we're downtown Beverly and they keep popping up buildings and this is gonna project and this will increase density and population by this. We haven't had anything like this. So I don't think they've experienced it, and we need to rely on an expert.
I think it's worth exploring. I mean, I don't know why we would nix it without even exploring who the consultants would be, so.
We ask for,
Should we have the FinCom come in and talk to us and express our concerns and see if they have
I guess the zoning bylaw and the Massachusetts law doesn't relieve us of our financial duty to do this. Like, I feel like we're letting them do our job. So, I mean, I do want to give them reference and deference, and we should ask for their opinion, but we don't need their permission to get a financial analysis.
So again, I think the chair of the FinCom felt comfortable doing this, so I would. My feeling is to have them come in and let's ask them if they feel capable of doing this, and if they don't, we should move on to it.
Okay, but Ron, let's just,
Let's-
when we
let people
interview
feel different.
consultants, we look at their background and their qualifications. What qualifications is the FinCom going to bring to us that we should feel comfortable with this?
I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
I think, I think what needs to happen is that you have to come up with some specific scope of services that you want undertaken by this consultant. I guess Mary said she has one, or seems to be working on it.
I have what?
Scope of services, you mentioned that you had an idea of what you thought a financial analysis would look like.
I said,
And I think that if we could come up with something presented to the finance committee, see if they have, see what they would think about it. They say, this is, yeah, that's a good idea, we should hire a consultant to do this. But we already know what the tax benefits are gonna be, so we don't need to do that. Who knows?
I don't recall saying, that.
Maybe I misunderstood you.
But I'm just reading,
In which case, we have no idea what you're proposing here.
so so we have it in our performance standards, so 6.3.12 fiscal analysis
Sure.
standards. So we say the SPGA or planning board shall require a financial analysis of the proposed development to determine the long-term benefit and cost to maintain a positive net fiscal position. I don't need to read the whole thing, but so we have that embedded within our special permitting, and so so the applicant provides it and provide some of the data, but we have to do our due diligence as well. And so just like we wouldn't just say to the applicant, provide your own traffic study, and then we say, okay, that sounds good enough. So I don't know what the big pushback is. I think it's an important piece, but I think if
It's not
we,
pushback. I want to find out what exactly what it is you would like to have done. A financial analysis is a big broad term. What specifically are you asking for?
so you want the data points.
I guess you would call it data point, sure. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, sure. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward, but I'm happy to provide a list.
I think Greg had a comment.
Yeah, Greg,
Well, there just stated that the applicant will be providing the financial analysis if you want to have that peer review, which is what we're talking about in these other areas. It's certainly fine to do that. So, you can ask the finance committee to comment on that financial review that they provide, but you can also have a consultant do a similar review.
Laura,
Is the financial analysis provided by the applicant primarily looking at tax generation and tax burden?
Yeah, they'll look at the revenue that the project is likely to generate and
Yeah.
the services that it will
Yes.
likely require.
So that is the scope of a financial analysis. I mean, I think that's pretty straightforward, and so that's one of the things they'll provide us.
I would,
Get a second opinion if we think it's necessary.
yeah, it seems like we should ask the finance committee to work with us on it and advise us on who maybe would provide a peer review. It was not. Maybe we could write them a note with an excerpt of the bylaw requirements for the financial analysis and ask them to weigh in on who would provide a peer review, and should be somebody who probably knows something about the town.
I'll send a note off. Is board in agreement with that?
Sure.
And do we want to, on the other engineers, going back to, I think, it's my opinion that the civil engineer at any of these firms could weigh in on concerns about the geothermal. Closed loop geothermal or closed loop, they don't have, I do know something about geothermal. But I think there will be concerns about it from the public, so I think it's strategic to have a peer review person who can make sure that people are comfortable with it and understand the technology from the town's perspective. It is in the water zone to the water district, so, but I would think that any of the engineering firms could provide a,
Well, we could ask,
Yeah, we
you
could
mean the
ask,
one,
yeah.
but if not, who would be, how would we find a firm to do a geothermal peer review? Would that be something
GCA.
the town could investigate?
Who did they hire? They've hired,
H&A, not feeling all
oh
that.
yeah,
Fire
so
Haley and-
GCA or,
Yeah, maybe CBA.
GCA.
There are half the
Yeah.
geotech firms out in the.
Right, it's a geotech.
Geotech, not
So
Not
we're
civil.
in agreement to have a peer review on the geothermal, I assume.
see the harm in it.
Mhm. Do we want to put them out to 3 people, with a scope of traffic engineering? Put them out, we could put, just a letter out, or maybe ask Greg to put it to the geothermal, geotech, stormwater review, traffic review.
I think that she's done this already, or maybe not, I don't know.
I think she has.
Requested peer review, proposals from.
She hasn't actually requested them. She just identified some people who could request from that.
So on the request, is that something you would do, your town would do?
Yeah, I'm happy to
Okay,
make that happen. Yeah.
all right.
Can I? Do we want to, is the board gonna weigh in on who, I just want to make sure that we have, as soon as the application comes in, we have, time starts ticking. So I think it's incumbent upon us to
Line them up.
to get these folks lined up soon. Do we want a, maybe we get letters of interest by the next 2 weeks, and, I mean, do we want a subgroup to just make a recommendation back to the board? I'd be happy to, you know. I mean, it just feels like we don't need to necessarily take each applicant up in public meeting.
I would be happy to defer to the town if we get 3 qualified bidders for each discipline, and the town takes either the lowest bidder or the best value bidder, depending on what they see as
Or
the
the,
right
I
fit.
think criteria too of experience
Yeah, as
working with
long
the
as
town.
the bidders are all qualified, I don't think we need to get, my opinion is we don't need to get involved in selecting.
Like
them.
my only concern was I would like a different opinion than whoever we use for the 40B if possible. Especially for traffic.
So maybe Nate might have some experience with some of these people too. So that sounds great if we get a recommendation from you, that would be great. Are we all comfortable with that?
Laura,
And then one more question for Greg, is there a specific resiliency, sustainability consultant on their team? Do you know how they're addressing that? It weighs into stormwater, CSD team,
CST, I believe.
yeah,
Yes.
and is that separate from their, say, their civil engineer, or
It's
I
Hancock,
believe it is, yes.
it's separate?
Yeah.
Okay,
it's Hancock, I think.
okay,
It might be the same firm, but a different person.
right. If that's the same firm, if it's within the scope of the same firm, and we're asking our engineering firm to look at these other disciplines, I think it would be smart to look at resiliency measures as well, so that's, you know, kinds of stormwater management that are related to flood control, water quality, you know, heat island reduction. All the things that I think they're trying to do, but it would be good to demonstrate that and then just vet that as well. It doesn't require another engineer, and it's already within the scope of what we're asking our peer reviewers to do.
you're in agreement with that? Okay,
Can I just make sure that we're in agreement that we're gonna take a recommendation from Greg and Nate for the engineers? Are we all in agreement?
I'm in agreement with that.
Okay.
As long as it's not the same as South Signaling.
No, as the 40B for traffic.
Yes.
So we have a bias against that. I think we are in agreement on that. Okay.
Just an FYI, Betsy has given Andrea and Bill head up to establish a special revenue account for this.
Great.
The finance department. Okay. Next item, town planner update. As you know, Betsy's last day was Friday. She sent out a packet to everyone on where she left things stand. So I guess, Greg, you're pro tem town planner at this point.
You got me. You got me. We're
So
working
can
on
you give the board an update on,
Sure,
on
yeah.
what's going on?
re-advertising. We've got a couple of new inquiries last couple of weeks. We will pursue those. Continue to try to find new interim. Have not had success there. The names that Betsy had, none of those panned out in terms of being available or wanting to do it. So we're struggling a bit. A difficult climate to try to hire somebody. Running into salary demands that are higher than the town pays. Even if we were to boost it up, so some of the requests were not feasible for us. We just change our entire structure. So there's some challenges for sure.
So if we're not successful in, in the near term, is it possible to hire a consultant
Yes. Yeah. So we're
to
looking.
help us through some?
We're also pursuing that. We talked to the folks who are bidding for the task force, the MBTA task force, that consultant. If we pick someone there, they might be able to provide some additional services. Reaching out to NADC to see if they could have a circuit rider service that they might be able to provide. Talking about the consulting firms.
I mean,
So I
back in the day when I was first on the board, we had John Whitten that would come in occasionally
Right.
as our town planner.
Right.
That was 15 years ago. Different then, but
Yes.
any comments from the board on the town planner situation?
You have ideas? I know of places we should be advertising.
Did you get those two? I
Yeah,
sent
I
you.
got the-
One of them was in my draft. I'm sorry, I skipped it today.
Mary?
I just had a question, and maybe I misunderstood when you came and spoke before, but I thought you said that the planning board was gonna be somewhat involved once you had narrowed it down to one person. And I wasn't listening to the recent select board meeting, but it sounded like you had made an offer to someone. And then they didn't accept, and I'm just wondering why the planning board was not involved in it.
Yeah, it was really a timing issue. We were under the gun to try to get this person on board.
So will we be involved at all going forward, or is it gonna be the same
Hopefully, the
process?
time can work out. I'm happy to have you.
But I mean, at least I thought we were gonna get resumes shared. I mean, I don't think that would have been too hard.
So it's a tricky issue if someone has a
tricky
job
because of confidential.
somewhere else and you're spreading.
And the finalist level 5, but on the preliminary level, I share them with all of you. That becomes a public document. And that is a real negative to people applying. So I'm not willing to do that. So
So what can we do though? I mean, if it's maybe you and Ron, you and the chair, I mean, there needs to be some kind of communication. We
yeah,
are,
I've been involved in that all along and sharing some with him.
but I guess then why is it the first time that we're hearing through the select board that you offered something? I mean, like, maybe we should get some kind of correspondence. We didn't receive anything like that until now, but this was weeks ago. I just don't feel like we're getting the same courtesy. I mean, we are a board. It's not just one or two people. Right?
It's a challenge to navigate the process. Given the climate that we're in, it's very challenging.
Laura?
I kind of see the other side of the coin and that it's an employee who's reporting to Greg. We're transient to some degree, and this employee hopefully is a long-term person, and Greg is, a staff of the town. So I I understand the climate we're in terms of the hiring, and I think if Ron is in correspondence with Greg or in communication with Greg, that's fine by me that the chair be involved, but I really have to defer to you as the person's manager or the employee of this person in determining. I think you know what a professional planner is, the services, the scope that we need, and so I think that this is primarily a town hiring issue. And bring us in at the appropriate moment. Courtesy, but I don't need to be a decision maker in any way for vetting a person. Just a difference of opinion.
I guess it's the first I've heard that Ron was in the know, so. Just communication.
I'm pretty sure we've talked about that before.
We talked about that we were all gonna be involved.
Well, I agree with Laura. It's Greg's hire. The planner works for Greg. Greg makes the decision on who to hire. I mean, person has another job. You don't want to be spreading, this person's looking for another job. I think there's some kind of professional courtesy there, so it's a tricky situation.
I think what we can all do is to figure out innovative places to send advertisements, or know people who know people, or
Word of mouth is one of the strongest avenues in this climate.
right, so
Someone who knows somebody type thing, it doesn't hurt.
Is it going to be a full-time position? Is there a chance?
I mean, that's
There's
the
no
idea.
change in that.
Open to any and all options and ideas, but it is advertised as a full-time position.
I have to look at Betsy's report and recognize that there's a lot of work to be done.
Laura?
I will just offer this, it's totally, your call, but if the salary is a limiting factor on getting someone, would the town consider making the same salary of 30-hour week position or 45-hour week person system in order to get the caliber of person that you're looking for?
It's not out of the question. It's
Yeah.
Some challenges to that, but it's
Sure.
not out of the question.
Okay. MBTA. Multifamily zoning districts update. Mr. Only.
Okay, so, the first thing is that there's a community forum being held this coming Saturday morning at 10 o'clock in front of Town Hall. We're going to try to explain the mandate to folks to come,
Where is it being, where is it?
right on the town common in front of
It's
the
outdoors?
outdoors, yeah. And part of it's gonna be, weather permitting, a walking tour of some of the sites in downtown.
Oh.
Show people what densities are in the area already.
I think it's only supposed to rain Saturday in the afternoon.
Yeah, the afternoon. This is at 10 in the
Saturday, it
morning.
has to rain.
We're gonna try to squeeze it in before the rain comes.
That's great.
The second thing is that, the town did receive a single proposal for consulting services to help with, the town to understand the mandate and come up with potential solutions. The candidate is, I guess, a joint venture of, Emily Innes Associates from Newburyport and RKG Associates, which is a bigger firm that's multi-state. Luckily for us, I think they seem to have good experience and have worked with other communities doing MBTA work, and so we're gonna be interviewing them. Greg has an interview set up on this Thursday afternoon. The task force meets Thursday night, and the task force has spent the last couple of weeks looking at data from the assessor's office. We had different versions of it, but we've all agreed that the property data that the assessor has provided is probably accurate enough to provide us a useful baseline of information. Of course, the state has their own computer system that we're to use with data theoretically from the assessor's department, so we're hoping one of the things we can do right away is compare what the state computer model has for Manchester versus what the assessor has. And if there are some discrepancies, to try to get those worked out right away before we go much further. The other thing we're working on is a community outreach program, ways of interacting with town residents to make sure they're involved in this process the whole way. Yeah, I guess that's it. If anyone has any questions? We'll be happy
Any
to try to
questions
answer.
from the board to,
What time is the forum?
10 o'clock in the morning. There'll be coffee served, coffee and pastries.
when do you meet, when does your full board meet again?
Thursday, this coming Thursday at 6:30.
That's the full task force?
Yes,
So there was a subcommittee meeting?
there've been several, many subcommittee meetings, on community outreach, on the zoning possibilities. And on, basic assessors data is another special. Six subcommittees that look at that.
So where can we find this
Could you-
information?
Most of the information is available, it's on the website, it's on the MBTA website.
The assessor's data is on the website?
No, not the assessor's data, but some iterations of it are, yes.
I couldn't find it.
Could you share with the board next meeting, your proposed schedule?
There is a proposed schedule, yeah, I'll have to share, I can share it tomorrow, actually, I'll have, I'll send it out to everybody.
So this schedule does it go through the iterations? Does it end when does it say when you're gonna try to come up with
Well, yes, it's kind of the farther, when you get out to July, it's kind of hard to
okay.
predict what's gonna happen, of course, but yes, we go out that far. And included in that is a project from a group of MIT students, and they're gonna be making a presentation, I think, to this board as well as the task force on October 26th, I think it's the date. And we'll get more of that later. And also the tasks that are called out for the consultant to undertake, those are woven into the schedule as well.
So we're thinking of going to the voters, not in April,
It's too early to tell. It'd be nice, we're shooting for that goal. Maybe we'll call a special town meeting in June to do that. And maybe we'll just have to put it off until as best we can, but that's our target, is to get to the town meeting in the spring.
okay, any other questions from the board?
Question with that, and then another question. So, and I think I asked this last meeting. So when does the task force propose to pass it over to the planning board? So yeah, so I don't know, because the way you're wording it, it's like we are gonna bring it to town meeting. I'm just wondering.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I should be more clear about that. So obviously it comes to the planning board, probably, it'd be great in March if we could do that. I can't guarantee it, but that's when we'll be going.
So isn't it, sorry,
Oh. Go ahead, because I just forgot.
doesn't it need to go to the state 90 days before?
90 days before town meeting, yes, but that would be, so if the final town meeting were, let's say in June, so it would be April or something, that would go to the state.
Yeah.
Any other
probably
questions
more
from
than
the board?
one.
on
Oh,
this?
yeah, I had, and I've asked this before, and I think I asked it in the wrong way. So what we submitted to the state was that the task force and the planning board would meet on a regular basis. I misinterpret that as saying, as monthly. So it's not monthly, but when will the task force be meeting with the planning board? Because we haven't yet.
Yeah, we haven't, once we get the consultant on board and we're working towards there's no point meeting now, I don't think, because no one knows, the ducks aren't lined up in the row, we're still looking for ducks. But once we get them, then I'll be talking to Ron about setting up a meeting, a joint meeting where we can discuss all these things.
Yeah, because I mean, I would hope, and you're right, because you don't have the data or, you know, all of that in a
Yeah.
packaged way, but I would think once that starts happening, that a regular basis would be more regular.
No. I don't wanna. I wanna leave it up to the task force to kind of come up with.
Well, I
stuff.
think, I think we have to engage, we definitely have to be in contact as we start going through this process, so.
Sarah,
I'm curious, Greg's opinion, about whether, the MBTA, zoning is so of such interest to people that it would be strategic to have it at a annual town meeting, or if it warrants kind of its own meeting in, say, June or November, whatever time it is. Do you have any opinion about that? Because at this point, it may be too early to.
Well, not to be pessimistic, but I'm skeptical that it'll be ready in time for the April
Right.
town meeting. I just think that's gonna come upon us very quickly.
Yeah.
Given
As they do.
as they do, and just, this is a pretty heavy lift. I think there's gonna be a need for a lot of discussion and a lot of public outreach and a lot of back and forth. So, given that, I don't think it's gonna make it for the annual.
Yeah.
So
So
that,
it's sort of a moot point.
so, yeah, I think it's a moot point. I mean, I'm not opposed to doing it if you can get it all together.
I guess,
For the annual, but I
Yeah.
just.
I guess the other thing is, are there there may be components, sort of precursors, that might come to the annual rather than the full zoning density, but. For example, last meeting, we talked about the demolition delay,
Design
Or-
review and demolition delay are two aspects that I think are worthwhile regardless of
Right.
MBTA zoning.
right? And the other that I'm interested in is like sort of commercial, whatever, I'm not sure if commercial's the right
Mixed use.
mixed use on the lower level to maintain some vibrant
Right.
business community in the downtown. So maybe that might be a sort of the precursor to the larger
Yeah, people
density
would
options,
encourage you to think about that in terms
Yeah.
of public's understanding and
right?
does that become more confusing or less confusing? Do you want it a package deal or
Right,
is it in bits and pieces? That, I don't know the answer to that. That's just something to think about. As it progresses. But yes, it is possible to think about some precursors. That sort of lay the groundwork, like I say, which is, I think has value regardless.
Right.
Of what happens with MBTA.
okay, great.
anything else, Mr. Delicio?
So I guess the RFQ went out on the 25th. I mean, it's on this town website, but we are the zoning board. I mean, I just don't understand where, huh?
Or the plan.
I'm sorry, the planning board. And we're in charge of zoning, or this is our charge. So I really do feel like there's just a lack of communication, like we're just not being CC'd. I really do feel like there's need to be a folder and everything that they have, we need to see. I don't feel like the planning board should have to go to the town website to see what we're ultimately responsible for. I feel like there is a major lack of communication. And this scope of work, I mean, I don't know, it would have been nice to say, hey, what do you think about it? Give us any feedback, but the scope of work is huge. I mean, we weren't consulted on it at all, asked our opinion. And from what Betsy was saying, where I can't, run the compliance model. And this scope is absolutely completely different than running a, not being able to use a compliance model. And the firm that responded is really pro MBTA zoning. They're like saying, we kind of don't want to work. And that seems to be normal language. Like, we only want people in the committee that are pro MBTA zoning or 40R or this. And so this is outlined in the response. So it's concerning that this isn't going to be an unbiased document.
Can I respond to this?
Of course you can, Chris.
Yes, go ahead.
So the town always has the option, if it wants it, for the town voters that come out of town meeting and say, we're not approving this. That's their decision to make.
That's not new
However-
information, Chris,
however,
yes.
The alternative has to be something that the town can do to comply with it, and that's what the mandate of the task force is. We know the possibility of not complying is always on the table. It's always on the table. There's no point studying it. You either do it or you don't. But if
Well-
you're gonna have an alternative, it better be a good one. And so that's what we're trying to do, is come up with the best set of alternatives that the voters can make an informed decision on. And that's not what the consultant isn't gonna tell us anything about non-compliance, because we know what non-compliance is.
We do?
Yeah, we do. We know where a bunch of grants are in jeopardy and we're gonna get sued. That's clear, that's.
So I have reached out to Greg and asked for that grant list to be updated with the bucket of money, you know, when it was awarded, so we can get some more detail on it, and I haven't seen any more information on that. So I guess,
You're welcome to the files and we can get that information.
what's that?
You are welcome to look through the files. I don't have that in form to give you that to you, so I don't have to create new information. So you're welcome to look
I
through
mean,
the
I
files.
cross-referenced it, what's supposed to be on the website, and I can't find some of them, so
No problem.
I can't look at the files if they're not on the website.
You can look at the files in the office here.
Oh, I thought all
So
the
we
grant money
should
was on
go
the
down
website.
this rabbit hole of getting information. The planning board voted for the task force to
We have.
get this. I think you should direct, when the task force meet, if they ask for comments, you can direct your comments to the task force. But the planning board is not involved with this right now. The task force is. So if you want information, go to their meetings and tell them then. That's my feeling. Understood?
I am shaking my head, Ron, yes.
Any other comments for the MBTA? Okay. Moving on, liaison committee, task force, working group update, senior housing bylaw committee. Any update on that?
We need to set a meeting for the next meeting. And
Yeah, I think I sent you an email, Ron. I do have a concern. I've tried to set up a meeting for the past month for the senior housing bylaw subcommittee. And I've sent out 4 emails with no response from the other subcommittee members. So I would like to entertain perhaps getting other people on the board to fill in those spots. I think the senior housing bylaw is important, whatever iteration we come out with. And I think the unresponsiveness is not an ideal working environment. So I'd like to, you know, I'm assuming these members don't want to be on it, and they can speak otherwise, or can explain why they don't respond to emails, but I think if we have members that would like to join in, I'm happy to spearhead that.
I'm interested in still being on the senior housing subcommittee,
So, like,
You're interested in what?
continuing to work on senior housing bylaw.
And you are too?
Yes.
So may I ask how come there's been
So we were busy,
unprofessionalism of no response?
busy doing other things and I don't look at my planning board email every day. And so Chris was out of the country.
So let's set up a date.
That's what I suggest at the end of this meeting. We put our heads together and find 2 or 3 times for the next meetings going forward.
I'll join
That's
in. So maybe others can too. Still make it happen.
I think it, so you know, I do hope this can move forward and we can, you know, again, get it back to a little bit of professionalism and respond to emails. And I see response to some emails, but not certain ones. So I think it is important if we, as a board, have voted in a subcommittee, that the subcommittee work on that task.
Okay, well, put your heads together and come up with a meeting date and continue your work. Harbor Management Plan Advisory Group, any update on that, Sarah?
No, we have not met. I believe Bion has received a proposal now from the Urban Harbors Group and is taking them on a site tour. The group is trying to get sworn in. I came on Thursday and couldn't get sworn in as so then we have to set a meeting. So I have to check with Brian about the next meeting, but we have not met since last time.
Okay. CPC held their annual public hearing on September 28th to open the new fiscal year for this year's grant application season and discuss CPA's mission. There was 0 attendance from the public, but we are in the season to begin to take applications for CPC funding. Any other committee updates, Mr. Only? Slowly. Okay. Approval of regular minutes. I didn't get any date from Gail, so I assume there is none in the packet. Is Gail on? Gail, any minutes available?
She said none.
There are none, okay. Other matters, I would ask the board for your endorsement for me to write a letter of appreciation to Betsy Ware on her service to the planning board. Any objections if I write that and sign it as for the board?
Great, thank you for doing that.
Okay. Lastly, the zoning bylaw books are available. Well, at least they're in a PDF form. You can print them out. Although I think there was a update that came out late today, or
I don't know, I got that email and I originally asked for a hard copy and then I took that back because I looked at it and with the, quickly, and the updated zoning map isn't in there. We still have the old District D zoning map. Table of contents hasn't been updated.
And the index, I think, wasn't updated.
In the index. So, and I didn't look at the body of the document, but I think with those few things, I think we need, at least I would wait until those are updated before I print.
Okay, but everybody here, I remember requested paper copies, books, right, when available. I think I made that known. Okay,
I did ask the town clerk when those would be available, and I just haven't heard back. When it would be the final copy.
we haven't heard
So
that.
So should we let town clerk know that there are problems with the?
I think Mark Glovsky did today, I think, when he read it. There's some index problems or something, but she's aware of it. Okay. I'll follow up with her tomorrow. Okay, so next week is a public hearing. We'll take it from there, and then we have no meeting in November because it's a special town meeting, and then we have the 27th and December 11th to close out our calendar year. Unless anyone wants to meet, you know, we need to meet, we will.
I have just a couple questions.
Questions?
So on the rules and regulations that basically got punted by town council, how are we gonna pick that back up to, because I would think that I thought that the DPW was waiting until we got finalized rules and regulations to pass over the curb cuts. We have never officially passed that over to DPW. So I think the rules and regulations is still a priority, like it was a few months ago. So I'd like to see what kind of schedule we can come up with for that.
So, go
Yeah, I
ahead.
just wanted to comment on the curb cut piece and make a suggestion. 'Cause I agree that we are supposed to, you know, that we should probably just deal with the curb cut section of the regulations and make sure that those are, get voted, or, you know, that we look at them. So if we could just excerpt that from the packet and get those at the next meeting. Finalize
That's
those.
fine. It might, that's fine. I agree with that. And then we could do the other sections that would, you know, in some sort of time frame. My concern is, I think DPW has been okaying curb cuts, and I don't know how they're doing that really, because we don't have a application form yet, or we haven't really passed it over to them, so.
I'd be willing to talk to Nate about how many he's had and just find out.
There
What the
was an
status is.
email that they've done 3 or something.
Yeah.
Did you get that? Is that somebody asked?
Maybe it was
Or I
in
read
Betsy's
that.
report.
The rules and regulations, I thought were gonna go to Jonathan Murray.
They did, and he came back.
And
with
they
some
came back,
concerns.
and was he in concert with that, or?
He's got quite a few comments.
So who's addressing those comments? Does the board address them, or?
So either address them as a full board or a few of you want to work as a subcommittee to working group to go over those comments and see how you want to.
So Betsy had brought up quite a bit about Johnson's comment.
Kind of have to go with Jonathan's comment,
Yeah.
it seems to me.
So and Jonathan only looked at like 3 sections out of several, right? There was a couple that were just copy and paste from MGL, but there's still several still to look at.
I don't know.
Can I,
I believe he only looked at 3 sections. So if that's the case, we already have a rules and regulations committee. So I think we can just take that back over and address these.
So, but that's kind of starting from square one again, and I think we've lost a lot of time. I mean, I personally, I don't know even what the starting point is anymore.
We have to address
Let-
them.
Let's take a look at his
You gotta Start
comments.
with what you have.
Yeah.
And just review those comments and see. which-
Yeah.
right, are they,
how you wanna
some,
proceed.
yeah. Well, maybe we can
Some of
take-
it-
So let's
some of the
take a
comments
look at,
and-
as a board on the comments and make it, as I'll have it. We'll talk about them at our subsequent meeting.
They were in our
Are they
packet.
available somewhere?
Yeah, they were in
Yeah,
our packet.
I thought you sent us the email.
Yeah.
Maybe we could start with, I agree that curb cuts. And if we were gonna take a second chunk, it would be the procedures for taking money from consultants. That,
I don't
and those
think-
are as our top 2,
That was the whole reason I think we started all of
Right.
this in the
but
beginning.
those 2 should have, it seems to me those should. However you take money, let's write it down and.
We actually have it already in our bylaws, so it wasn't that urgent, but I don't think he looked at the curb cut. I don't think that was one of the 3 that he reviewed so
The
far.
curb cut was guidance that. I think Betsy gave us a curb cut, in the packet of material. Let's put it on the agenda and finalize it next time, it seems to me.
Well, I'd like to have, we need some documentation, can't just put, I wanna have some kind of paperwork for the board to look at.
Yeah, I'll find it in the stuff she
Okay.
gave us.
I think town council needs to look at it, right?
I don't think to look at the curb cut one.
But I think some of their comments where you're passing some of these off onto other boards without checks and balances or whatever their comments were. So I feel like those are the comments he was making on the 3, then I do think that he needs to look at it.
Can I make a suggestion? Sue's as an attorney, maybe we could ask her to just take a look through his comments. Summarize them in a bullet form, put them up on the screen so we can all understand what the comments were, 1, 2, 3.
Well, let's. do
And
that
then,
when Sue's here.
and she's got a lot of.
I'm
We-
comfortable
we have an
relying on a board member. If we're not gonna
We have an
rely
attorney.
on one or another, we're relying on an attorney to look at 3, no, why not 4 or 5
I'm
or
just
all?
asking to summarize them somehow.
I can read them very clearly. They're not confusing or.
So let's put the curb cuts,
For the next meeting.
on the next meeting, and then if you could put the backup in the packet.
So at this point, it's my understanding, without a town planner to send things to town council, we need to ask for town council to look at something.
Or we go through Greg.
Well, we still need to talk about
Right,
sending
yeah, if we
curb
want town
cuts.
council to do something,
Yes,
we
so
need
I'm
to-
suggesting that we have town council look at curb cuts for the next meeting. And send us their thoughts.
Anybody else have a comment on
I
that?
think we should look at it first before, make sure that we have in it what we intend, and then
We voted on it to approve it.
let's make sure that it's what. That's, so if you didn't look at it, then is it in force?
Why don't I start off to see if you did look at it? and if
Yeah,
you did,
well, okay, that's fine.
it's a good place to start, perhaps.
Okay, so we'll have curb cuts on the next agenda, and then we'll have the public hearing. Have an update from Chris. And be pretty quick. Okay, anybody have anything else?
So our next meeting is the 23rd. Is it just the public hearing or is it also a meeting?
No, we'll have a public hearing at the prescribed time, which was 7. Whatever's advertised, and then, hopefully we can squeeze something in between 6:30 and 7, whatever, it looks like a short, piece, and then, we'll have a regular meeting after the public hearing. Also, after the public hearing, I think we need to discuss immediately any comments we get from the public on whether we want to incorporate them, because we're on a short fuse here. To get something before, if we want to move forward, to get it to you for,
Yeah.
your public printing, which is,
2 weeks before, right? At the fine, needs to be approved by the select board.
Yeah, so we need to have it posted, but then the drop dead date you posted is the 30th, I believe.
30th of October.
Yeah.
So if you're assuming you approve something on the 23rd.
Right.
And the select board can have a special meeting and approve the warrant.
Okay, so that'll be the plan. We'll take comments, discuss amongst ourselves what we want, if we want to move it forward, incorporate any comments, and get it to you.
So town
Christine?
council did not look at curb cuts. They looked at rules and regulations, general, planning board meetings, section 1, 2, 4, and 5, site plan review, and special permits.
Was that a email or was that in our packet?
It was an email from Ron.
Can you post, can you just put that in the whole, his memo into the meeting packet for the next meeting? I can make a folder for that right now, if there isn't one.
And then still on the town planners report, I guess, you know, just as I drive around the heater, walk around the heater, when Betsy was talking about parking, there are those 2 spots, I think, that I understand where these 2 spots are, but there's also spots on Pleasant Street that seem to be occupied by residents on a regular basis. I was wondering if we're looking at that and maybe putting, if we're trying to attract people and give people places to park at Powder House, maybe put some time limits, you know, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I mean, if people need that for overnight parking. But the 9 to 5, if people are trying to visit that, those spots are always filled, it seems, with residents'
Not a
cars.
select board issue, I don't think it's a planning board. Regulating parking.
Certainly not on our agenda.
I'm asking that we could talk about it. It's in the planner's report. I was asking if we could talk about it in the future. It's land. I understand it's parking, but we're talking about open space. And this was in our report. We're talking about how to figure out the problems with Powder House and the parking. So it's in our packet. It is relevant. I'm asking that maybe we discuss it at the next meeting, Ron.
Yeah, backup information, you want to put in the packet, people to review, what you want to discuss.
What kind of backup would you like? We're talking
I don't know
photographs?
what I don't know what you're talking about, I don't know what the issue is with the planning board. Could you? can you-
I thought I was
could you
just trying to explain it.
Could you restate what you want the planning board to do?
So part of the issue, it seems that some of the building was built of Newport Park in the wrong space, and they're trying to figure out, I think some of the original deeds, which is planning board, its land, were in the wrong space. They're trying to gain access for the public to park and access Powder House. But residents are using the Pine Street spots as their own. What I'm saying is that on the other side, it appears that there's regular Manchester residents, not Newport Park, that are consistently in those spots. I'm saying if we're land using these and trying to find people, Parks and Recs, lands, Powder House, this is our purview. But maybe we should ask Nate what's going on with the other side. This is, you know, just one side of the parking issue that we're trying to get people to access Powder House.
So
Is it an enforcement issue or is it a planning?
I don't think there's any signs there. I'm just asking if they've looked at it. They're trying to, fight over these two spots on one side, which
So what do you want the planning, I mean, I'm just
I'm
trying to
asking-
think this, what we want to do about it. What do you want the planning board to look at? Weeds?
I would like an opinion from Nate. What is the regulation on those other spots that are supposed to be access to Powder House? There's no signs. And it appears that they're just residents, the same cars there day in, day out.
but is that a planning board issue?
It's access to Powder House, yes. Land, it's land use.
I think open space and parking issues sounds to me,
Then why is it in our report?
because it's something the planner has been working on. So she was helping us.
I beg to differ. I think it's a deed issue with Powder House.
So a solution, if it is a deed issue, if it's a lot line issue or a land swap, then some open space or the town or the housing authority or whomever will come to us with a plan to change lot lines, and that would be our jurisdiction. Or if there was a revision to a special permit or a new special permit, then those would be our jurisdiction. But signage for a parking
I'm
space,
not asking
how
about
parking is
signage.
used.
I'm asking
is
that
at our-
before something
One
gets
person
to us.
speak at a time.
So that's just, I'm not clear what action we
We are
would
given
take.
things at the last minute. We're saying, here you go, and they expected a rubber stamp. I'm trying to give my input on something that was on the town planner's report before a final product comes. If we're fighting over these two spots that between Newport Park and access to Powder House, I would also like at this time information of what's going on the other side. I don't want to be presented, at some town meeting, the night before, like, let's figure out how this is what we've all done. And now we want you to approve it. I would like some background information on why those spots aren't also being looked at.
The simple answer is they are,
Well, there we go.
so.
That was so hard to get that out. I don't know why things need to be so difficult. Thank you, Greg. So is there other information that you can expand upon?
Excuse me, this is not,
This is not a planning board issue. I have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Good.
I'm going to before you go to the public.